Live.
One,
Yes.
2, 3, go. Awesome. Well, happy Wednesday. As we know, this is our regular Winner Wednesday that we do every single week. I'm sure you guys recognize these amazing agents, Jaybee all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Mr. Ruben from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
What you got like a pageant wave, especially with the American flag behind you.
Yeah.
Good job.
So, we do this episode every single week, but once a month, JB and Ruben are gracious to get on here and really share some of their best strategies, tips, and tools that they're using with their teams in their markets. And today we have a really special episode of List to Sell. And this is a common question that I get from a lot of real estate agents, especially those that were licensed during COVID after 2020 and might not know quite what a normal market looks like. But I think a lot of real estate agents are intimidated by listing. Personally, I built my career when I was in production on listings. I really enjoyed the challenge of listings, but I know that that can be kind of an intimidating task for a lot of real estate agents. So first, I want to start with, how do you become a master listing agent? And then also we'll kind of get into the tactics later on of really ensuring that you're winning every listing. And then more importantly, you're selling every listing that you're taking. So if we can kind of give a brief overview of how you guys got into listings initially and what advice you would have for agents that want to maybe transition from less buyers to more sellers.
Sure. Well, so for me, in 2015, up to that point in my career, I was primarily a buyer's agent. And in 2015, I knew that I would be able to leverage my business by taking more listings. So for me, it was, I'm not going to say it was simple, but the mindset in terms of just being very intentional and time block, 3 to 4 hours a day of prospecting, really focusing on and so that's kind of how I doing that.
So what was that mindset shift for you to be able to go from buyers to sellers? Because I know sometimes it's a mental block before just getting into the lead generation part of it.
For me, I had to just rip it off like a Band-Aid. I loved buyers. Buyers are amazing. And I still work with buyers, but I'm still listing heavy. For me, I knew I had 3 small children at the time, and I was not able to leverage my time, with a buyer. I was out all day, every day, weekends, all the things, which I love that part of the business, but I was not able to leverage like my family time and, just building a bigger business. I had to transition to listings. And so I took a class and I really studied it. And then I just remember, I always tell the story to my team, like, I remember it was so intimidating for me in the beginning. I was sitting at my dining room table with my laptop and my notebook, and I had, my prospects pulled up and nobody was answering. And I was like, okay, somebody answered, and I freaked out. It's very intimidating in the beginning, but I just knew it was really important if I wanted to build a big business. So the mindset shift for me was just do it, get used to being uncomfortable. And it took me about 2 months. I got very comfortable getting rejected and, getting all the no's and the slams and all the things. But, I started making calls at a higher level. I also started to get a lot of yeses. So
I love that. And you talked about the pain that's attached to it, right? So needing to really focus on listings because that's going to allow you to leverage your time because you had little kids at home. I have a pretty similar story. And then I got my license 2 weeks before my oldest was born. So I had no choice but to focus on listings. So I think that pain with the goal is pretty important. Ruben, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen naturally, right? Even if you're a buyer's agent, eventually these buyers may be selling that home. And if you were a great agent at that time, they're going to reach back out to you. And at that point, you could either take it on or refer it out. I think obviously the best part, if you want to learn all aspects of this business, is to take it on and try it out. So naturally, the mindset wasn't necessarily ready. It just kind of came as you work, because I started off with buyers too. But it will come into your life. And I'm just like, for all the listeners and the watchers and all of that, just take it on, one deep breath. I'm sure you have a mentor, somebody that you could shadow or that could help you out, but just move forward, because just like JB said, it is a very high leveraged product in your business.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. What do they say? List to last, right? So we've talked about the mindset and kind of overcoming that hurdle. Now let's talk about getting the listing appointments and building the confidence to go on the listing appointment. And then we'll kind of talk about how to win the listing. What would be that next step? So we've ripped off the Band-Aid. We're ready to start calling and get those listings. How do we get prepared for the listing appointment?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, I think you've got to know the neighborhood, know the comps, really research it. You can't, it's not something that you can rush. You have to really look at all aspects of the area that you're selling. And so, I would spend a lot of time, I would drive the neighborhood. Of course, I would look at the comps, see the days on market, see the condition, and then be able to formulate a CMA. And, my strategy always going in to these listing appointments, especially in the beginning when I wasn't as experienced as I am now, was they have a problem and I have a solution. And so
Right.
I would just try to convey that information as precisely and as, where they would understand it. And I think you've really got to go in being yourself and, talking to people, person to person. I would get to know what their situation is, what their motivation is, what their goals are, why they're selling. And so that would kind of lead what I need to do it as an agent and how they would receive that information.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
So I have, just because of how my brain operates, is a very small brain, and I need processes and systems. So I remember going on the listing appointment, I didn't want to look like a dum-dum. So what I did is I got the listing agreement and I made my own, kind of. So I built all the information that I needed in the listing agreement, I put on another document. So it looked like I had my board and I had all the information. It looked like I was smart and I was walking around, even so much so for the characteristics that you plug into the MLS, that all those little buttons you can click of all the cool things that a house could have. I built my own document on that too. So as I pulled up, is it a gated community, all this stuff. So I just went down. So I built a process of what I would need in order to plug it into the MLS is really all I did. And I have access to all this if you guys want it. Obviously, MLSs are different, but that gave me confidence because I didn't just show up to show up and say, hey, I'm a great agent. I actually started asking them information about their property, and it's all the stuff I'm going to need anyways. So that document alone kept me in process with the seller to get their home sold. So that built a lot of confidence. The second part of that is I had and this is what JB said too. It's something called a needs analysis, where you go in and you do 4 things, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what is your goal? What would you like to do here? I like to sell my property. Awesome. Challenge yourself to go 3 deep, right? So the next one is why. Goal why. So what about selling your property is important to you? They want to go to across the country because they want to watch their daughter have their first grandchild, whatever, and then stay in that neighborhood. Whatever it is, you got to really find out what that why is. So what about X is important to you? And then the now, goal why now. So where are you at now with all of this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? I don't know. I'm lost. I need someone like you to help me out. Oh, okay, great. And then the gap. So goal why now, gap. And the gap is for me to help them get from where they're at to where they want to go, which is across the country, to meet Susie having her first baby so they can have their first grandchild. So needs analysis, which, by the way, if you need to write that on that document, that's also the same MLS-ish sheet, you're writing stuff down. And that way you can just leave with it and you don't have to try to remember what their name was and when the due date is and all the other things. Even on the back of it, I would have where are you moving? Are you talking to an agent? And I would get all the for a referral process, also the showing process. So do you have an alarm? Where's the keys? Do you have pets? All of this was on that one document, man. So I felt confident because I already had a system that helped me be confident. It was a source of leverage when I went on that listing appointment.
So I'm hearing mindset, confidence, don't show a lack of uncertainty, because the reality is these sellers are going to sense that, right? And come with a plan. So JB talked about researching ahead of time, and Ruben talked about systems and processes. And I like, Ruben, that you said you have this sheet and you're taking notes and you're asking good questions, because any good listing agent knows how to ask really good questions. But what happens is when you politely ask them for a tour and you're taking notes and you have a document, not only are you documenting things for yourself, but I think you're building rapport with that seller and probably standing out from all the other listing agents that they're, that may come in and say, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think? I like to look at it like this in terms of confidence and uncertainty. If you went to your doctor and you're sitting in the doctor's office and your doctor comes in and says, well, what do you think I should prescribe you? You probably won't be going back to the doctor. I can't tell you how many times I've shadowed other agents, just helping, coaching, and training them, and they're asking the seller what their professional advice should be. So think about that. JB and Ruben just gave some really, really good points. Now, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. So we've taken notes, we've got our systems and processes, we've done our research. What is your take on a listing presentation? I'll start with mine. I never used a listing presentation. I believe that most people don't care how great you are, or how great your company is. They care about how you're going to sell their home in the least amount of time for the most money, right? So I always had what I called a 52-point marketing plan that showed exactly the steps we were going to take to get their home sold. What is your technique? There's no right or wrong in terms of listing presentation. Are you giving them any deliverables? Are you sitting down and doing a presentation? What does that look like?
So I use a one sheet, and a one sheet is about a 5-minute conversation that I can go through about maybe my experience and our numbers, but I'm very short with that. I feel like where a lot of agents go wrong is when they go into an appointment and talk all about themselves. Like
right.
At the end of the day, I don't think that the client really cares about that. They do to an extent because they want to know that they're with an experienced agent, but past that, it's more about, just like you said, Micah, what are you going to do for them? So I spend about, honestly, I say 5 minutes, probably 1 minute talking about, our needs. And then I push that aside, and then we get right into why I think it will sell here. I mean, really kind of what my marketing strategy is. And typically when I'm leaving a listing appointment, I do bring the listing agreement, and I come up with a plan right there together. Okay, listing agreements, always bring in a stager. So I start walking through that. We're signing today, stager here next week. As soon as your stage, the pictures come, we're going to go live this day. I start walking them through that. They know. So
I think you're assuming the sale, right? You have the listing agreement, you're asking them to sign, you're setting the professional photographer, you're setting the stager to come in and do a consultation, building that rapport, building that timeline. And the reality is, even if they want to interview other real estate agents, that doesn't stop you from still going over the listing agreement with them, right? Because for the most part, we're all using state contracts.
Well, and I'll say this, I want to just back up just a little bit. I learned this from Jay Kinder because I was on his team for about 5 years. He taught me to, when I'm setting the listing appointment, I'm always asking if you're going to interview other agents, I think that's awesome, but I would like to be last. So that's always stuck through me in my career. And so I do try to always be the last realtor they're going to meet with.
Right. Best for last.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Are you having challenges here in JB, like at the end, or is it just, it might be on my side?
It's cutting out a little bit. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I was like, because I was like, what's that? And then no one said anything. I was like, oh crap, it's on my side. But okay. All right. So I'm not gonna have much to say here because I kind of just said it, which is my listing presentation is truly the needs analysis. Because, there's a few quotes that says logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. And if we can tie them to the emotion, which is, I can't wait to help you see your first grandchild born. And that's my goal, is to help you cross that line and make enough money to make the move, and build the gap of, this is how we're going to do that. But how are you going to know what to truly focus on when you don't even know why the reason is they want to even sell? So the needs analysis is huge. And then obviously walking around the property with those forms and it looks like we're ready. That's what we do. And if we were going to talk about a little bit more, we take 8% listings. So we do discuss the 3.5 that we give to the buyer's agent side that increases demand inside the property, which increases the sales price and all the other cool things. So we are different in that aspect, but most of it, we're just focusing on the emotion of them. It goes back to just, if you want great answers, you got to ask great questions. So that's what helped us really, really close these deals. And I I don't even track the conversion, but we got to be 9.5 to 10. I mean, we do really well with taking listings because of that.
Right. No, that's awesome. And what I'm hearing from both of you is you're going in, you're assuming the sale. So we get the listing. How are we ensuring that every listing that we take, because it is our signature in real estate, right? That it sells, that we're pricing it accordingly, that we're setting it up with photography, with the staging consult. What is that process to make sure that every listing you take is actually going to sell and not just set it up for another agent to come in once you expire?
I'm really a stickler on the data. We've all had sellers that want a price above market. And I agree. I'm like, I would love to list it there. You would make more money. I would make more money. It would be great. But you're going to love me today and then you're going to hate me in 3 weeks. So I have to be brutally honest. I don't control the data. The buyers control. It's all right there for us to see. So we really analyze that. And so one, I'm a stickler on price. So I don't overprice listings. And then we probably since 2012, I've had a stager go in, and even occupied staging. So the stager comes in, they know how to make the house flow a little bit better. We cover that as a team. So I'll do a walkthrough after the and then I'm like a stickler for like making sure everything is the way that the stager wants it to be. And then on the day of pictures, I'm there and I'm making sure the pillows are straight, the towels are straight, all the things, there's no cords showing. I think you've got to put that time and energy into it because their biggest investment is about to go on display for the world to see. And it is a reflection of your agent and it's a reflection of your investment. So I talk about that in the listing presentation.
I love it. So you're setting the proper expectations. And I always call that the 3Ds. You're going to depersonalize, right? You just talked about taking all the personal photos down, not only for safety, but also so the buyers can imagine themselves in the home. Right. Declutter anything that you don't immediately need or you're not going to use. Put it in a box, put it in storage, put it in the garage. And then the last one is deodorize. I've walked through multi-million-dollar homes that have reeked of pet odor and just ruins the entire experience.
And that's one good thing about having a stager.
Right.
She's the bearer of bad news.
Exactly.
Not me.
We get to be the good guy, good cop, bad cop.
And I also want to add in there that you guys, to the people listening, I have lost listings because I will not negotiate on the price. Like I am a stickler. I just had a listing. It was like, my comp was at 209 and they were determined to list it at 220. And this was about 3 months ago and it expired and they're back on the market with someone else for 200. So I just a stickler on price. I just tell them, look, I would rather part ways now. because I know we're going to get into a situation months down the road where you're going to be looking at me like I have 3 eyeballs selling. You day one, we've got to price it right. So I have, so that is part of this game.
Right. Which goes back to list to sale. Are you listing to sell or are you listing to set it up for another real estate agent? Right. So Ruben, how about you?
I agree with the clutter thing too. You know, we used to say clutter eats equity is what we would tell them. Clutter eats equity. So definitely get rid of the clutter because we need that open space to walk through and for that potential buyer to be able to see themselves in this house. The other part, and y'all might kill me for this, is so in terms of listing it at the price that the market would accept it at, if it is a little bit higher, even the 220, I think is what you said, we would take it. But this is what we do in the listing agreement. We say, hey, Mr. Mrs. Seller, listen, 220, I see what you're saying, totally. We think it's 210. May run into an appraisal issue, by the way, just heads up, expectation conversation. And we say, hey, listen, if we don't have any offers, if we don't have any showings in the next week or two, this is in the agreement, the listing agreement. No showings or offers in the first week or two, just depending on the property. It automatically drops to 210. So we're like, hey, Mr. Mrs. Seller, we'll give you that chance. We'll give you that chance. It's all good. But just know and understand that in a week or two, if the market's not accepting it, I don't have to call you. I don't have to go through that whole, hey, do you want a price adjustment? Do you want a price improvement or whatever the marketing stuff is? It's like, nah, we're done here. It just drops. And now, oh, weird, the showings start to show up. So totally get it, but we will take it with that verbiage in the listing agreement that it automatically drops if we don't have this or this.
And I'm assuming, Ruben, in that, because I completely agree that I would have like a pricing schedule, same thing. 2 weeks from now, no showings, no offers, boom, we go here, but it still needs to be in that ballpark, right? You can't have somebody that's way out of the ballpark, but back to Jaybee.
Hey, if they want to list for $1 million and it's priced at $50,000, we're pricing that bad boy. Listen, I'll market it. I will do a video that says, we've got $1 million property. Can't you tell? And I'll put it on, I'll do whatever, but no one understand if we don't have a showing in this $50,000 property at $1 million in a week, we're dropping it to $49,000, probably the largest price drop in MLS history. But yeah, we'll see. But we definitely put in that verbiage for sure.
That's awesome. So basically having those upfront expectations you talked about, having a schedule of price adjustments instead of having the conversation after the fact. So I think that's really important. Well, great. Well, I think we gave a lot of great advice here. I mean, any kind of closing statements or anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to share?
I think that if you're heavy on listings right now and you really want to make that one of your goals, really get to know the market. It's a whole different ball game is working with buyers. You've got to know your neighborhoods. You've also got to know there's a completely different marketing strategy in my market, like a $250,000 property as opposed to a $1 million property. Those are two, and you've got to know the difference. You've got to know what to do, but you've really, I spent a lot of time driving around, learning the neighborhoods, learning what's close to the neighborhoods. You should know commute times. You should know schools. You should know all that and one of the things that I do is I always ask the sellers, why did you buy this house? Because most likely what's important to them is great for us to market. So to me, this side of the business is, I love it, but you've really got to understand and know your market.
Right. Absolutely.
Totally. I will add, so if anybody is thinking to list their home without an agent, so I'll touch the agent part real quick. So I looked it up, and for homes, this is NAR, so the National Association of Realtors. If you don't use an agent to sell your home, on average, the median sales price was $260,000. For the ones using an agent, the median price was $318,000 with a difference of $58,000. So almost $60K, which is a nice salary in most of the United States. just in one transaction. So think about that. Think about that when you say you want to save money not using an agent, which sometimes that is the case. But most of the time, given the median prices that I just shared, data, not my opinion, there's a $60,000 swing there. So think about that. And then number two, with the agent, make sure you get a great agent. There are a lot of agents in this field right now. Really get a good one for multiple reasons. One, obviously negotiations. They got to know what they're doing. Jaybee knows the market. She knows how long it's going to take to get from this place to this place just from that neighborhood alone. Also, agents know other agents. So do your best to get an agent who doesn't have a bad reputation with other agents. That's gonna kill your listing, man, for showings and everything else, because they know that agent is very hard to work with, unethical. So that's the one thing that trips me out about agents and how they treat other agents. We are the one that's going to be communicating with the agents the most. So treat agents accordingly. Nice. And be easy to work with and all the other things. So I'll just say those two things. One, use, at least what I've seen in the math, use an agent. And then number two, use an agent who has a great reputation in the community.
Fantastic. I think that's a lot of great advice. I mean, we went all the way from transitioning from primarily being a buyer's agent to getting into listings, to getting the listing appointment, and then what to do during the listing appointment, and then actually listing to sell. So I think kind of a great evolution to help get agents started. So I really appreciate both of you. I know you're both extremely busy, and I think there was a lot of valuable content. And if agents have more questions and want to learn from you both, do you want to share your social media links or the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. I'm Jaybee Hawkins on Facebook, or Jaybee_Hawkins on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Approved by Ruben on all platforms. That's it. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you, Micah.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Bye-bye.